Ceasefire now! Ceasefire now! Palestine will be free!
From the river to the sea!
When you are breaking your fast, remember all the dying children! Remember that!
This is the scene last weekend in a sunny Perth park where Dr Anne Aly, the Federal Early Childhood Education Minister, was holding a Meet Your Local Member event. Anne Aly is the most senior Muslim woman in the federal government. That has made her a target for activists who don't like the way the Albanese government, and Aly herself, is responding to the Israel-Hamas war. We're used to hearing about reports of anti-Semitism and Jewish or Israeli Australians being targeted by activists. But it's a sign of the heat in this issue that a Muslim woman in the left faction of Labor, which has for generations strongly campaigned for Palestinian statehood, is now herself a target for pro-Palestinian activists. The scene at the park starts out calm as a young man introduces himself to Aly.
My name is Josh, and I'm studying to be a primary school teacher at Curtin University.
And she responds with enthusiasm when he says he's studying education.
In my last series of development tutorial, we were looking at the impact of poor nutrition and trauma in early childhood. The studies have shown that these factors lead to irreparable damage to physical, cognitive, emotional and social development that they'll never recover from.
He's talking about the Labor government's decision to pause funding to the local UN agency UNRWA, which provides aid and education to Palestinians. That came after allegations UNRWA staff were involved in the terrorist attack on Israeli villages on October 7, which kicked off the present round of hostilities in the Middle East. That funding has now been restored.
As the early childhood minister, my question is, what do you think the damage will be to Yazan?
Josh tries to show Aly a picture of a starving child.
Please don't. Please don't. Okay.
What do you think the damage will be to
No,
Yazan,
stare at
a
it.
young
Stare at it.
Palestinian who has been starved with the support of the
Stare
Labor
at it.
government?
Be brave and stare at it.
I've stared at plenty.
Yeah.
If you don't know who I am and what my background is, I will tell you now.
Yeah.
I've stared at plenty. My father fought in 1967. I know what is happening. Do not come here and lecture to me
my question is,
about that
what do you
issue.
think? I
Do
asked
not
a question.
come here and lecture to me.
Wow.
It gets more heated, with more of the activists chiming in, and Aly begins saying haram alaikum, shame on you, to one of them.
حرام عليكم فعلا في رمضان.
حرام عليكي انتي.
لا حرام
يا عيب
عليكم
الشام.
فعلا في رمضان.
يا عيب الشام. Also using the legacy of your
حرام
father.
عليكم.
How shameful that is.
حرام عليكم, because my father fought in the war.
Yeah, but it doesn't give you any credit.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And what have you done?
Oh, we've done
And what-
lots.
Okay.
The Australian's reporter Paul Garvey broke this story. Paul, what was your reaction when you saw it for the first time?
Look, it's hard not to feel the tension there, and it's hard not to feel some sympathy for Anne Aly as well, who clearly is passionate about this topic, clearly is in a difficult position reconciling her personal background with the government's position and the general, I suppose, tragedy around the whole situation in Israel and Gaza, and sympathy as well just for the fairly sort of juvenile standard of some of the discourse here too, right? The shouting and the aggression and the hostility in it all, as opposed to a more sort of sophisticated, balanced conversation or exchange of ideas, which kind of makes you wonder about the tactics here of the pro-Palestinian groups as well. You know, are they trying to win hearts and minds and broader public sympathy, or are they trying to play to one another? Because I don't think many people would have a greater sympathy for them and their cause after seeing the footage today.
The thing most people would know about Anne Aly is that she was the first woman of Muslim faith to be elected to federal parliament. But her list of achievements and accolades extends far beyond that. Before she was elected to represent the Western Australian seat of Cowan in 2016, Aly was an academic lecturing in counter-terrorism and extremism. Aly has 4 degrees, including a Master's in Education, a PhD in Counter-Terrorism, and an undergraduate degree in English Literature and Acting. She's also a single mum who raised her 2 sons, Adam and Kareem, in her adopted hometown of Perth, with the help of her Egyptian parents, who moved to Australia with Anne when she was just a toddler. She's been open about the abuse she endured in her first marriage and the cultural pressure she felt to remain in it.
For every person who's survived domestic violence, another death weighs really heavily on us because it's a reminder of what could have been.
Aly's heritage and her expertise has made her a target more than once. Threats against her life have been made online and in person over her years in the public eye, including very personal abuse directed at her Muslim faith.
I'm tired of fighting. I'm tired. I'm tired of having to stand up against hate, against vilification, time and time and time again.
Aly is a member of Labor's left faction, although she's a vocal critic of factional politics, and she's outspoken on the issues she cares about. She's joined with fellow federal minister, also a Muslim, Ed Husic, in saying Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza right now amounts to collective punishment of civilians, including children. She's called for Israel to be investigated over alleged war crimes.
Look, it's funny, that description of her in the video is basically a description of her in general. She is articulate and she is feisty. They're the two key attributes that we know about Anne Aly. She is not afraid to speak her mind. She's energetic. She's a workaholic. I think we've heard her background story of how when she was a young single mother, she was up studying to 3 or 4 a.m. and then up at 7 a.m. to get the kids off to school. That's the sort of person she has been pre-politics and in politics as well. She's one of those 24/7 people. She's certainly considered a hard worker and certainly someone who's not afraid to speak their mind.
Back at the park, Aly starts outlining her view and the men stop to listen.
What has become increasingly clear is that the only way a ceasefire is going to happen is through the negotiation that is being undertaken, led by Egypt and Qatar. The Israeli government has made it very clear what their agenda is. Very clear what their agenda is. They are pushing back and they are losing the support of the world that they once had. Okay? Netanyahu has made it very clear what his agenda is. He is ruled by a far-right section of the Israeli government who have voiced openly their desire for the annihilation and annexation of Gaza. It is a concern to the Egyptians, it is a concern to the region, and it is a concern to me, as it is a concern to you.
Josh, the student teacher, keeps going.
You haven't answered my question. With your knowledge of Israel and how far right it is, why would you defund it? Why would you defund UNRWA based? Why would you defund UNRWA based on Israel's propaganda?
Aly's husband tries to intervene and is told to go away by the protesters.
Right,
Stay out of it, mate. Stay out of it.
and then you've refused to answer my question about the impacts of early childhood.
The cops show up and direct Aly to leave, along with 2 uniformed officers, and the protesters follow her.
We see your complicity, Anne Aly.
ALP, we see your complicity. Anne Aly, ALP.
After the break, the deep concern inside the government about how this issue is affecting Australians and their prospects for re-election. You can watch this video right now by joining our subscribers at theaustralian.com.au, and we'll be back after this break. Like most groups of human beings, whether it's a school PNC or a football team, there are factions within Labor who disagree strongly about certain issues. Since the 70s, one of Labor's factional splits has been about Palestine and whether or not Labor should recognise it as a state. Every party conference turns into a brawl about this very issue. Here's a brief backstory. After World War II, to give the Jews fleeing the Holocaust, where Adolf Hitler murdered 6 million Jewish men, women and children, somewhere safe to live, the United Nations divided the territory then known as the Palestinian Mandate into 2 roughly equal halves. One half was to be called Israel, in recognition of the fact Jews had been living there for thousands of years, and just like Christians and Muslims, regarded cities like Jerusalem as their holiest of places. The other half was to be called Palestine. Wars have raged on and off ever since, starting in 1948 when 5 Arab nations, including Egypt, declared war on Israel. The war Anne Aly referenced in 1967 was a brutal 6-day conflict that resulted in Israel seizing the Gaza Strip and other territories from the neighbouring Arab countries. Now, Labor's left wants Australia to formally recognise Palestine as a nation in its own right. Labor's right factions believe such a move by Australia would undermine our support for Israel's existence and would put us at odds with our allies like Britain and the US. Those divisions have escalated over recent years as Israel elected a right-wing government led by Benjamin Netanyahu, and Israeli settlers moved into Palestinian-controlled areas, including the West Bank of the Jordan River, establishing communities there in what Palestinians regarded as an act of colonialism. And now, the latest episode in this long and bloody history is the present war raging in Gaza, where Israel is seeking to eliminate the Hamas movement, which governs Gaza. Israel says there can never be peace while Hamas and its supporters want Israel to be obliterated. Palestinians and their supporters say the toll on civilians is just too great. Hamas says nearly 32,000 have died so far in the conflict. Another UN agency, UNICEF, says 13,000 children have died and thousands more are starving because aid is not reaching them. The thing about Anne Aly is that she's on board with Palestinian statehood. She's Egyptian. She's of the left. So why is she a target?
I think it comes back to the idea that the pro-Palestinian groupings can try to target what they see as the weak links in Labor on this issue, right? And that is people like Anne Aly, who have of the Muslim faith, who have a Middle Eastern background, or those in Parliament who have current or former sympathies for Palestine, right? People who have been in the Parliamentary Friends of Palestine group, which of course was co-founded by Anthony Albanese many years ago. That's what they see. Let's target the weak links. Let's try to expose those inconsistencies of what people have said in the past to what they're saying now that they're in government, and really try to ramp up that division within Labor, destabilise the unity on this issue as a means of bringing that to the forefront.
Paul Garvey is the Australian's West Australia Bureau Chief. Powerful Chinese diplomat Wang Yi is refusing to front the media on his whirlwind trip to Australia. You can read all about his upcoming meetings with Penny Wong, Anthony Albanese and Paul Keating right now at theaustralian.com.au.